The measurement needed to make a half circle skirt or a 180-degree skirt is our waist measurement and our skirt length. And after taking those measurements, the next thing is to determine the amount of fabric required to make this half circle skirt. And this can be achieved by using the formula for the radius of a circle, which is circumference divided by 2 pi. But because we are making a half circle in this case, we are going to use the formula radius is equal to circumference divided by pi. Note that we remove the 2 because we are making a half circle skirt. Thus, and the pi represent 3.14 from our secondary school mathematics. Pi is 3.14. Now, the circumference is our waist, which for me is 43 inches, plus 1 inch zip allowance and another 2 inch sewing allowance for the two sides, which gives me 46 inches. And this 46 inches is what I will now divide by the pi, which is 3.14. 46 inches divided by 3.14, which gave me 14.6. And I now rounded it up to 15 inches. After rounding it up to 15 inches, I now added it to my skirt length, which is 35 inches. My skirt length is actually 37 inches, but I deducted the 2 inches for the band, the skirt band. That's why I'm using 35 inches. Now, the 35 inches plus the 15 inches gave me 51 inches, and that's what I used to fold my fabric. I first of all folded it vertically together before folding it into a triangle, like so. You fold it over once vertically, then take one corner of it and fold it in a bias form in this manner. You fold it in a triangle form like so. Now, after folding it in a triangle manner, the next thing is to mark out my radius, the radius of my waist, and that is the 15 inches I'm marking right now. Mark from the tip of the triangle, I mark 15 inches round the top of the folded fabric, and I connected the line. Then the next thing is to mark my skirt length, which is from above plus the 15 inches is 51 inches, and that's what I'm marking round the hem of the skirt like so. I marked it from the top in order for me to get a accurate round hem. I mark out my 51 inches and I connected my line. Now from the hem of the skirt, we can see that at this area, the fabric is not just enough. You can find out that the fabric may not be enough at a particular spot at the hem of the skirt, and we are going to have to make up for that area by joining another fabric to it. Now, the next thing is to cut off my waist circumference. But first of all, I added 0.5 inches to the top of the circumference of the waist for joining allowance to join it to my skirt band. The 0.5 inches is the joining allowance for the skirt band. Now I take a piece of fabric and folded it together in order to add it to that area where we have a shortage to make up for it. And this is how you are going to do it. You place it under the fabric like so, making sure that you have at least 1 inch joining allowance under the fabric at the area where you have a shortage. Make sure you push in at least 1 inch allowance up there before cutting out the fabric. And now I chalk out the exact area I needed to cut off, and I cut it out. After cutting it out, this is what we have. This is what the fabric I'm going to join to make up for that area that we have a shortage. I attach a safety pin to it in order not to mix it up with excess fabric, with leftover fabric, because it's easy to lose it if you do not distinguish it. Now the next thing is I divided the fabric into two. I divided it into two in order to have a front part and a back part of the skirt. This is because I'm going to be putting two pockets on the skirt. And if being is a skirt without a pocket, you may not need to you may not need to divide it into two. All you need to do is to input your zip at the back. But because we are going to put in pockets, that's why I divided it into front part and the back part. And this is the back of the skirt, which I'm also dividing again into two to make allowance for the zip at the back in order to attach the zip at the back. And this is the two pieces for the back. I'm going to be putting zip into the back of it. Now the next thing is to cut out the pocket. The next thing is to cut out the pocket. I first of all mark out 7 inches length. I took any piece of fabric that is big enough, mark out 7 inches, then place my palm on it and trace round the palm, making sure I leave excess space. Make sure that you trace round excess space around your palm in order for the pocket to be deep enough. And the mouth of the pocket should be 7 inches, like I said earlier on. And I made four pieces of the pocket, 4 pieces for the pocket. Now the next thing is to make the waistband, and in order to do that, the first thing is to determine the exact length of my waist circumference, noting that I've added several allowances to it, and that's why I took the front part of the skirt, measured the waist round, and multiply it by 2 in order to know the amount of fabric I will cut out for the band. And this fabric here is folded into two. It's folded into two. Now I decided to use 5 inches for the width of the waist of the skirt band, 4 inches for the band, 1 inches as a joining and hemming allowance. After folding it together, and we have 2.5 inches. The 0.5 inches will be for joining the band to the skirt on the two sides. And this is me cutting out the band. Note that I cut out the band 5 inches by the length of my waist circumference. 5 inches width by the required length that I needed. I added 4 inches. I added 4 inches to the waistband, to the length of the waistband. You need to add at least 4 inches to the length of the waistband because of the zip at the back. Now this is the back of the skirt. We need to work on our zipper now. And the first thing we need to do is to place the fabric for the back of the skirt together, right side facing each other, like so. Then I took my zip and I decided the exact uh, length I wanted the zip to end. I decided to, I measured out 8 inches, which is the length I wanted my zip to, where I wanted my zip to end before joining the two pieces of the back of the skirt. And the next thing is to join the back of the skirt from that end of the zipper. You stitch it down normally, and at the area where the zip is going to be, you make a gathered stitch there, a gathered stitch that you can lose easily up to that point where you want your zipper to end. I also mark out the 1 inch sewing allowance, the 1 inch zip allowance for the skirt in order to make it clear while joining, and for you to remember to take note of it. 1 inch zip allowance that I made for the, that I allowed for the back of the skirt. Now I'm going to sew a gathered stitches to the top of the back of the skirt where my zip is going to be, and at the end of where the zip will be, I will sew a normal stitch to the end of the hem of the skirt. Now this is what we have after joining the back of the skirt. This is what I have here. Now the next thing is to open up the zip allowance, open it up, flatten it if possible with a hot iron. Open it up like so. Open it up, and if possible you can use your iron to flatten it. And then the next thing is to place our zip at the exact point we want the zip to be. Place it there, and I use my office pin to pin it down, making sure that the teeth of the zip, the middle of the zip is lying exactly at the middle of the joined area of this back of the skirt, the stitch area. I make sure the teeth of the zip is lying on top of it exactly, and I use office pin to pin down the zip. If you have if you need to learn how to attach a zip, maybe a bigger one, to a gown, I have a video on this channel on how to achieve that. You can check it out by clicking my logo under this video. You will see a video on how to attach a very easy way to attach a zip accurately. Now the next thing is to sew it. After using the office pin, I went to my sewing machine and stitch it down. Make sure while stitching it down, you go from up down on the two edges, not going from up round and going up again. And that's how I stitch the zip. Now this is the front of the gown. The next thing I want to do is to work on the pocket. And the first thing I did is to measure out 3.5 inches on the two sides of the front of the skirt. I measure out 3.5 inches. 3 inches down, the half inches is that half inches that I left for joining the band to the skirt, while 3 inches is the allowance from the skirt to the from the top of the skirt to the pocket. Now you place your pocket at the point of that end of that 3.5 inches and pin it down, making sure that the pocket is slanting towards your hip. You know, we slanted our palm while cutting the pocket. Make sure the slant is towards your hip. Then you now stitch down that pocket using the 1 inch sewing allowance that you allowed for the side of the for the joining of the front to the back of the skirt. Make sure you use the exact allowance that you allowed, that you made for joining the side of the pocket. And after joining it, the two sides, this is what I have already join the pocket to the back part of the skirt also. We had 4 pieces. I joined 2 pieces to the front of the skirt and 2 pieces to the back of the skirt, like you can see. Now, after joining it, the next thing is to place the front of the skirt on top of the back of the skirt, right side facing each other, while matching the two pockets on each side. Make sure you match the pocket together equally. Make sure they align on top of each other accurately, and also the side of the skirt. Now the next thing is to stitch down the side of our skirt by using that 1 inch allowance we made for the side of the skirt. Then you go inside the pocket and sew with 0.5 inches inside the pocket. When you get inside the pocket, you join it with 0.5 inches the places I'm chalking down right now. And when you come out again, you continue with 1 inch allowance that you made for joining the side of the skirt. This is to make sure that the pocket is not distorting the shape of the A shape of the skirt, by making sure everything is rhyming with what you use to join the pocket to the fabric and what you use to join the two sides together. After joining it, this is what I have. This is what we have after joining the pocket, after sewing the two sides together. This is what we have. You can see that you can hardly tell that there's a pocket in this skirt because the side is very straight. If you had used a different allowance to join the side of the skirt, different from what you use to join the pocket to the skirt, you will see one side of it coming out while the other side is going in. You can see the two pockets is already there. Our pocket is on the two side. Now the next thing is to work on the waist of the skirt, the band. Now this is the band I made earlier on. I ironed a gum stay onto the the skirt band, and I also folded it in by 0.5 inches on the two side. Now the next thing is to join it to the waist of the skirt, and you need to do that by attaching with the office pin. That's 0.5 inches where I folded in and ironed in. You attach it to the skirt, making sure you leave at least 0.5 inch allowance at the starting point of the zip side where you started joining. Let there be 0.5 inches allowance before you start pinning down the band onto the skirt like so. And at the other end that we are going right now, as we are pinning it down, make sure you have at least 2.5 inches of band excess. If you have more than that, measure it and trim it. Make sure you have at least 2.5 inches where you are going to attach your button or your hook and eye. Now the next thing is to fold fold the band and sew it down. Now this after stitching down the band from the inside, remember I stitch from the wrong side of the skirt. I stitch it from the wrong side of the skirt. The first stitch I made was from inside the skirt. Now the next thing is to put this excess area, put it together wrong side out and stitch it together. You stitch it together before turning it out. I use my scissors to push out the sharp corner in order for it to be smooth. Then this is what we have. Now the next thing is to fold over upon the area we stitched earlier on. You are going to fold the band over it and sew it over. Sew over it with a stitch that is very close to the edge. I decided to use this method. You can as well use the sewing in the ditch method, but I decided to use this method because it's also a very neat method. Now the next thing is to sew it round. having folded in 0.5 inches on top of the stitch made earlier on. Then we stitch it round, and when we get to this area, you stitch it up, you go up and finish it at the place where I said you need to leave a 0.5 inch allowance to close your zip. Now this is what I have after stitching the band onto the skirt. You can see how neat it looks. This is the finished band. You can decide to use a button. You make your buttonhole and stitch on a button onto it, or you use the hook and eye at the back of the skirt. Now the next thing is for me to hem the skirt at the down part, to turn it twice. I will turn it twice inside and hem it. I will also remember to join the pieces to that area, to the area where we have a shortage. And after hemming the skirt and joining the little pieces, this is what I have. I've already joined the pieces to the area and also hem the down part of the skirt by turning it twice. This is the finished project. This is how beautiful and neat a half circle skirt can be. And we already have our two pockets inside it. Pocket is there and is really neat and beautiful. Please share, like and subscribe to this video. Please also press the notification bell in order for you to be notified as soon as I post another well explained video. Thank you very much for watching. God bless you.